Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on The Mob today. We are here with Jana Moore. She's the Director of Recovery Revolution in Bangor. Thank you, Jana, for being with us.
Thanks for coming.
And we're going to be asking them about what Recovery Revolution does. They have a couple different programs. They have, different I was going to say centers. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. Centers that, they work in collaboration, and it really provides this wholesome treatment approach to recovery for substance abuse addiction. So thank you so much, Jen, again. Please tell us a little bit about Recovery Revolution.
So Recovery Revolution is an outpatient treatment center. We started out in 2005.
Yeah.
And we from the beginning, grassroots, making sure that we work with the community, making sure we met the needs. In fact, our mission statement is to be responsive to the needs of the community. So we have to always constantly keep our pulse on the community to make sure that we are meeting the needs. So we started out with just a staff of 2 in 2005. And we have grown in many, many different ways and have been able to really be just so blessed to be able to reach out to the community. We provide outpatient and intensive outpatient, so anywhere from 1 hour a week of treatment to up to about 20 hours a week, depending on the person's needs. We also can help people into inpatient. We can support family members. We work with adolescents in the schools and here. So we've just opened up programs as we saw the need.
Yeah, well, that's very fitting, and I understand because that's kind of how we started. We did one thing, and then as you go on, it's like, well, now I gotta help now, right? So, what addictions can be treated here?
So we look at an addiction as a symptom of a problem,
Yeah.
and generally speaking, the problem a lot of times is trauma, is abandonment, is grief. There's all kinds of things that underlie addiction, and then addiction is the response to something else. So when we say what addictions do we treat, we actually treat any addiction because we look at it. We obviously treat substance abuse addiction, and we also treat what's called process addiction, and that would be gambling, sex, food, other things like that. So we try to treat a person completely as an individual and exactly what's going on. The other thing that happens when you treat one addiction, and if you don't come from a holistic approach, another addiction is going to pop out. So you take away the drugs and alcohol, and something else will generally come in there as an obsessive compulsive behavior.
Yeah, because you're not really fixing that, wrong choice of words. It's fixing, but treating that underlying issue, right?
Yes.
So we talked you were talking about little centers and stuff that we have here. So a Clean Slate Recovery Center, which, we took some pictures of. We met with Dee earlier too. This is a collaboration with Northampton County Drug and Alcohol and Recovery Revolution, right?
Yes.
And you were talking about having that kind of well-rounded recovery treatment. How does this allow for that?
So the origins of that is that we had an alumni association that really was saying, how can we give back? How can we work together? How can we give what we were freely given here and give it back to people that are starting out? So we actually started doing recovery center things before there was recovery centers in the county. We had an alumni association that would provide help for treatment, would provide help they provide meetings, transportation. We would do fun events in the community. We had a bowling team. That was way back, a long time ago. And the county saw this and some other people doing grassroots things and said, it would be great if we could really pool our resources from each community and provide a center. Because as you would imagine, we were trying to figure out how, this next event, how are we going to get money for this? And it was just an ongoing thing. And the generosity of Northampton County has been such that they have 5 recovery centers, I believe, in the county. They have a family recovery center and then other recovery centers in Bethlehem, Easton, Northampton, and here. And they support the programming that we do. They support the staffing. And it's just been able to be, and we can refer other people to their local recovery center. We always want everybody to go local because, if they're commuting to somewhere else, it's just not good for them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we want them to have their local resources and really know what that's about.
Yeah, and I like that you said that because, you know, to your mission about being about the community, sometimes it takes being in your actual community to know what's going on there and what kind of needs to be met.
And I found that when resources come from out of the area, try to come in, they just don't have the vibe of the community.
Yeah.
And this community was very hard, honestly, to break into. It's a different type of community, a more rural community, somewhat distrusting at times. And it's been, and probably rightfully so, distrustful at times, but it's been wonderful because, you know, we show up for events that are going on in the town and they see us at different places. I mean, way back when we were dressed up like rabbits in their rabbit parade and Easter, you know, just absolutely crazy things. You know, with a little flair that says, you know, multiplying like rabbits for recovery. But, you know, it's just a passive part of our history and stuff like that. So it's been absolutely wonderful to be able to be part of this community and really feel like we're a cornerstone in the community. We've been offered to open up other places. Outside the area. We've been even offered free buildings, and we just had to turn it down because we would have had to move, and then we'd feel like, well, we already put roots here, and we want to stay in the community that we put roots in.
And it takes so much work and time to build that relationship where the community can trust you. The roots run really deep.
Well, and I also just am always concerned with like large growth. I've watched this large growth have happened to all different agencies, all different places, and they lose something. And we've always been very cautious that is this going to gain and collaborate with the programs we have already? Or is this going to take time, effort, energy? And like, you know, other places are well-meaning. It's just that they get too big too fast, and you really can't supervise. You can't foster the new employees. There's a lot. I'd rather grow one person at a time for staffing rather than just explode.
Yeah, and that says a lot to the care that you guys provide, because when you care for your employees and you care for the people that are going to be caring for people, you're probably going to have better service.
Yes, and we've always wanted to provide a wonderful place to work because it trickles down to our 100%. People that we serve.
100%. Speaking about services, I want to, can you explain to me a little bit about the intake process or, you know, receiving treatment? That can be really daunting and scary for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Walking through the door for the first time and admitting that you may have an issue is difficult for anybody. We try to provide an intake process any way that someone feels comfortable. So an individual can call on the phone, answer a bunch of questions, and we make sure that this is the right place for them. And then we set up an appointment to come in and do an intake. Individuals are able to walk out on the street and come in, and we will take them in a confidential space and have a conversation with them. So they can definitely walk in. We have referrals from courts and children and youth and employers, but we also will take referrals from Self or anywhere else that they can come in. We also are really open. We're a nonprofit, so we're open to individuals. We want them to get the help that they need, no matter what their funding source is. So we work with too many funding sources to really name them without boring everybody. However, what I always say is that we never allow money to be a reason that people cannot get help.
Okay. And so you take different insurances. You said a scholarship program. I remember earlier you were talking about that.
So we have private insurances, we have medical assistance, we have county funding for individuals that don't have insurance. For individuals in other counties that we aren't contracted with, we work with them. We have a scholarship fund for people that have insurance, but their insurance does not cover much, which is a lot of people. You know, so high deductibles, high copays, different things like that. We certainly cannot take everybody for free, but someone that's really trying to make a difference in their life, we certainly don't want money to be an issue of that.
I love that, you know, because that often is one of those barriers that people face all the time when coming with treatment is like, I don't have enough money to get treatment, you know, and it's very unfortunate. In my own recovery, you know, it's been super fundamental to give back. I've gotten much better, you know, with my mental health as I started facilitating support groups, becoming a peer specialist, and it's just been really great. I read on your website that you guys have an active alumni association, and you talked a little bit earlier about how they were a key part of bringing these county-funded recovery centers. How important is for Recovery Revolution to give back and the individuals treated here as well?
We want to give back as an organization to other things that are providing wellness in the community. So we as an organization support when we can and contribute to other things in the community, financially, volunteers, different things like that. And our alumni give back in a bunch of different ways. We have a homecoming week coming up, and they come and they share their experience, strength, and hope.
Wow.
And it's just amazing. We have 15 different people speaking, and they come in, and you know, it's not only that they are in recovery, but they've also sat in the chairs that these individuals are sitting in, which is really, really beneficial. And we try to vary people that have been sober for 10 years or 10 months so that people can hear a different level of story and really, you know, wherever they're at, connect with something. So a lot of times they do that. They provide, they help our scholarship fund. They provide resources in the community. And it's really important when individuals, as part of their healing process. Now, we never want to say, you need to give back.
Yeah.
It's a natural process when individuals come out of darkness and into light. And when you see the light and you then become the light and you want to become the light. Mm-hmm. And when you're living in darkness and living in this area where you feel like you cannot get out of, and other people come alongside you and help you through that process, the natural response to that is, I want to do something and be part of the solution rather than wanting to be a part of the problem any longer. Yeah. And it's a natural thing. So while we encourage volunteering and that type of thing, it is a natural occurrence when people are getting better.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, that reminds me of when you were talking in the recovery center, you have, there's like a colorful word sign that says gratitude speaks. And like instantly that's just the image that came up when you were speaking, because it's like a deep rooted like gratitude that, you know, like, man, I made it out, and, you know, I'm in recovery, and I just couldn't bear to like see someone else go through this without doing something. And so I completely understood that whole thing.
And you're a lot of times starting to live in your purpose. You know, like we always like to, you know, a lot of people think like, I want to get the life back that I had. And sometimes the life back that they had isn't the greatest. In fact, we want to empower them to get into a life that they never thought that they could have. In health and wellness and giving back and finding what their purpose is.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's, I don't know. It's just such a weird thing because I just saw the image.
You're right. That's a wonderful image to think about. But yes, that's one of the reasons we chose that.
It was very fitting. And so I want to ask a little bit about your youth programs. And so youth are so vital to society. You know, they kind of are the face of not only what's coming, but like what's present and what's here. And it's unfortunate that we are seeing this kind of epidemic sweeping through young people with drug abuse. And so what programs do you have for youth, and how do they work?
So the history of our adolescent programs are, when we started here, we were seeing adolescents not getting help or treatment. In fact, a lot of them would end up in a mental health place, but they wouldn't know how to specifically address their addiction, or they wouldn't address it, or they would look at something and say, well, that's just normal use. And that's a really hard thing to differentiate. Yeah. So it plagued me because I'd worked in other places where there was a booming adolescent program. So I knew that there was a need, but I was trying to figure out what was going on in Pennsylvania that adolescents seem to just be forgotten. And that was our experience when we got here. And that plagued me because I know my own adolescents, I needed intervention. And I know that the kids that we were working with over in New Jersey needed intervention. And I knew these kids just weren't getting identified. Not that they weren't there, they weren't getting identified. So we started really quickly going, how are we going to meet the needs? And now one of the big things with adolescents is transportation. They don't have transportation to get someplace.
Yes.
So then you have to say, okay, well, where are adolescents that we can actually provide services to them? Because they're likely, I mean, we have a few, but they're likely not going to show up at our outpatient. They can't get here. There's stigma around it, what have you. And that's when we started partnering directly with schools. And we don't go around to schools and promote our services. We allow them to come to us and say, we need help. Because that's when they're ripe, when they're willing to do something differently. Not all schools are, and that's just the way it is. So we don't want to promote our services and try to push it on somebody.
Yeah.
We want to partner and collaborate with the schools that can identify individuals in their school that need help and be proactive. So we put master's level clinicians directly into schools that we have contracts with, and they provide treatment. They can come here for treatment additionally if they ever need it. Their families can provide resources here as well. And we just try to meet them where they're at. So we work in alternative schools and regular schools. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful program. We see about 75 kids a year.
Wow.
And
So
when we started out, we were seeing 2. So
that grew.
it did, but it was trying to figure out need, where can we get them? And the transportation is one of the things. And also like adolescents have a distrust, and a lot of times for a good reason, they have a distrust of adults.
Yeah.
And so even if we can just show up in an adolescent's life and give them a sense of that there is an adult that you can trust, there's help out there, we're really planting seeds. It's hard to measure success with adolescents because they're not even done growing anything like that. But now that they have an adult that they can trust and talk to and confide in, I mean, we've had kids that were seen in, Easton School District that are now in college still talking to our counselors.
Wow.
Because the connection was there and they were just like, I'm not ready. I still need this connection. Yeah. And we've been able to provide them services for a long term.
So I'd like to know, besides the distrust and being able to identify the youth, what challenges do you face with this age group that's different from adults?
Well, so I'll speak from what's been always here and then the times. So I would say that, adolescents from a physiological standpoint, their brain is developing. And they've shown with brain studies that the brain literally shuts down while it's manifesting and growing and things like that. So when, as a parent, you're like, what were they thinking? They may not have been. They may not even have the capability of being of the thought of logical thought at the time. Yeah. I'm not saying that adolescents have that all the time. I mean, of course they have the ability to have logical thought, but there are that shutdown. There's also rebellion going on a lot of times. There's also just thrill seeking. Yeah. So they will take risks that adults may not take. Yeah. So that makes it a perfect storm for addiction to come in because. I've said to parents, there's you have 3 kids there and they use something at a party and it will be a different response in all 3 of them, even though it's the same substance. We also make the assumption that the drugs today are like the drugs that were there 20, 30, 40 years ago. And it's nothing like that. I'm so glad you touched that. Nothing like that. And you're like, well, I used to dabble. I used to smoke some weed. I used to do. Yes, not this. Yeah. Not this marijuana, not the, and the other thing, and this is now touching on today, is that drugs are big business, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's gas stations that are peddling all kinds of substances that, are bath salts, so don't ingest them, but everybody knows that if you ingest them, you can get high, and the people that are looking for that. So there's this whole level of stuff going on underneath it. So the accessibility of substances is way different now than it used to be. And it's in the kids' faces. I mean, my son in 5th and 6th grade said that individuals are vaping in the bathrooms. Wow. And, exactly.
That's like elementary.
It is. It's elementary school vaping and other things like that. And with all the vaping stuff, you don't know what's in that. Yeah. They sell all kinds of different things. So, and it's really hard for the schools to address, obviously. And it's just a difficulty all over the place. I'd also say that, adolescents now have so much information that they can have information overload. So all of the social media stuff, all of it, and I'm not against technology at all, but we do have to recognize that there is an impact on being bombarded with information.
I always say that. I always tell people it's a completely different world. I mean, I have nieces and nephews. They're 12, 8, whatever. And they're living in a world where they're exposed to the entire world. My parents knew their neighborhood and the news about the state. Like, that was it, Like, the overloaded what you're talking about, I'm sure, like, because it's present right now, we can't, quite measure the effects as much. But I'm telling you, in 50 years, we're going to see, like, how much, we'll have those studies down, Cornell and everybody will come out with them. And they'll come out and then we'll see how, much it affected their brains and all that kind of stuff. It's incredible.
And people that are looking to get entertained quickly and get entertained, like the delay of gratification. Yeah. And when you're talking about substances, that's the issue with substances. It's the delay of gratification. Like you use, you get high, and then you're right there, and then you're in that horrific cycle that you don't think that you're ever going to get into. But that the delay of gratification is such on phones that it almost, it causes our brains to not function the way that we were meant to function.
Yeah, overstimulation for sure. Moving on a little bit from youth, I want to ask you a little bit about like the full family, right? Personal experience, people on the channel know, pretty well. My dad struggled with heroin addiction, and having family support was something I had never seen. I bet. Every rehab we went to, every treatment center, no one ever offered us, and it's becoming much more common now. So I'd like to know, what kind of family programs do you guys have here?
So a lot of us, like the founders of the program, myself and another individual, we really modeled our program as an outpatient at the way the inpatients do. And now inpatients almost all have family programs. They recognize the need for that. And outpatients are also starting to get involved in the family program. We've been running a 6-week Parents, Partners, and Loved Ones program, and we've always wanted to provide that service separate of the individual that's struggling with addiction, meaning that they don't, in an inpatient, families can't get help a lot of times if the person's not willing to get help. And what we really want to promote is that family gets healthy no matter what's going on, because it will absolutely wave out to get other people healthy in the environment. So addiction being a family disease, and I think about it like a Tasmanian devil spinning in the household, and everybody's just kind of walking around, like, oh my goodness, they're spinning, there's wreckage and everything like that. And I don't know what to do about this. And without reaching out, it would be very difficult. And there's a stigma against it. There's, individuals, the family members that erroneously blame themselves for what's going on here. And they don't want to reach out. But we have found that individuals that are willing to take that journey, not only do they get help for their own, but it helps ripple effect in their environment, in their household, and different things like that. So we've seen, as the family gets better, then the individual that might not wanted to get help starts wanting to get help. Or our individuals sometimes go through the family program that have gone through our treatment because they have issues with how to help another family member. So
I like that. That reminds me a lot of, we're partnered with NAMI. They have the NAMI, I think it's the Family Basics, and it's like an 8-week program. They teach you how to self-care, how to support people that have mental illness. And I think those kinds of programs are super important for you. Like you said, not just for the individual, because there's a lot of treatment for the individual and there's hardly any for the family. And I think, like, when you can do both and they can come together, you have a much better chance of what we would deem success, healthiness.
Thank you so much for saying self-care, because that's the number one thing that we do in our family program.
Yeah.
We make sure that the individuals are caring for themselves, because that's what happens in mental health and addiction. You lose yourself. You get so involved in what the major Tasmanian devil going on in the house currently is, that you forget your own needs. You forget self-care. You forget that, you're responsible for caring for yourself, and that caring for yourself first would really help out caring for other people.
Yeah.
And it's just like you get almost into this cycle of numbness.
Yeah.
Without the substance, and you get numb and you just go through life versus gaining health and wellness.
Yeah. And I think that's a good message for people to hear. I hope that, you viewers, when you're listening to this, that you take this into consideration. Health, mental health, your well-being, your wellness, it shouldn't have to depend on your environment, what's going on. And that's what these programs teach you, how to find that, regardless of the circumstances. Because when you get into a healthy mental state, then you can start thinking about solutions. You start thinking about, okay, well, this is what we're going to do to kind of make the situation better. But if you're all crazy and the Tasmanian devil somehow reached your head and now you're spinning all around, it's going to be really difficult to kind of get out of this situation or make a better situation out of it. So I really do love that program. I'm finishing up here, and we know elections are coming up in November, everyone's favorite time of the year. What resources do treatment centers like Recovery Revolution need to better serve the community, and what kind of legislation can help that?
So when I think about what the issue generally is, it rolls down to reimbursement rates. Okay. Reimbursement rates by insurance, and this isn't across the boards, but a lot of reimbursement rates by insurance companies are very low in comparison to like a medical procedure or other things like that. So that places are left to fundraise or figure out how to make ends meet, because the reimbursement rates, when you're having a master's level clinician with 10, 15 years and certifications and licensures, those are expensive individuals to have on your staff, and the reimbursement rates don't generally mirror that.
Yeah.
So I think that overall we have not had any issues with staffing throughout 2020 and all until now. We've been very fortunate. Again, we're small, so we don't have to fill 20, 30 positions ever at a time. And we actually have a waiting list for people to come work with us. So what I'm viewing from a global, and especially in Pennsylvania itself, is that the workforce have a real big problem hiring individuals that are qualified for the rate that we can pay them. Yeah. So really, the root is the reimbursement rates. Yeah. That would be a huge thing that legislators can promote. Yeah. And when you're dealing with for-profits that run insurance companies and things like that, that's what they're going to be looking for: cutting costs and making sure their shareholders get the amount that they need. And I think there's a balance. I think you can do both. So and my big one is getting the pharmaceutical companies in check.
Yeah.
So really, like, using lobbyists and working that somehow we consistently make the same mistakes, which I really think is money behind it, but we make consistent mistakes that the pharmaceutical companies have the best interest in mind, and sometimes they do. And pharmaceuticals have been amazing throughout time period with different antibiotics, with different treatments of things. Yeah. However, from an addiction standpoint, it's caused a lot of problems. Yeah. And medical assisted treatment is absolutely a form of treatment that is useful, is beneficial. But I'm not of the school that that's the only form of treatment that is useful and beneficial. And that is a push going on from legislators as well as pharmaceutical companies. But I'd have to say that that's probably not to benefit the client.
Yeah.
When you're making money off of individuals by doing a treatment, you have to start questioning, well, what is the best treatment for those individuals?
We were with Applegate Recovery And there are a new treatment center here in Blakesley.
Okay.
About 9 months they've been open, and they do medicated assisted treatment. And when I was speaking to the director there, Nicole, something that she mentioned was that, you know, that the idea that someone comes in through the door and they do the medication assisted treatment, it doesn't stop there.
Right.
Because medication doesn't fix all the issues that is encompassed in addiction.
Right.
And so she has to do the work to refer out, to get them counseling, to, you know, make sure that they're doing all the things that really, you know, the medication part helps with the brain chemistry. It helps with the, you know, getting out of the addiction. But staying on the recovery, you need connection for that, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can only go so far. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning of, if you're treating addiction or you're treating trauma, it looks completely different. What your mindset is on that. And there's really not a medication that's going to end trauma. There will absolutely be medications that will help you through the symptoms as you go forward. And there's been plenty of mental health medications that have been phenomenal. But I think the propensity to throw a lot of people on a lot of medications is a dangerous one. Because sometimes we don't know what the baseline is, and there's other, you know, there's just other issues with that. So I think we're too quick to listen to, you know, really what bounds on to pharmaceutical companies telling us what we should be doing in treatment.
think definitely more safeguarding, definitely more qualifications.
Yes.
Not anybody, just not your physician can prescribe you Zoloft or I don't know, whatever, you know what it is. But I've seen those instances where I feel like that person needs an evaluation before they receive, you know, some kind of psych med, because it can have its side effects, you know.
Well, and what really happens with addiction and mental health is that the, you know, doctors, especially like primary care physicians, they get, I really like this one, and it's the doctor that provides medication, the same medication to every single person that comes in there. That'll never work. That treatment never works. And medical assisted treatment can work, but the title of it is medical assisted therapy, so that there's therapy going on somewhere else. And there is some safeguards put in that, but I don't believe anybody checks that. I know a lot of individuals that go and get medication and, you know, they don't get help, and it just creates the cycle.
I agree with everything that you're saying in the sense, you know, we do need more safeguarding. And I think it's important for, you know, people to see that these, you know, whether they'll see it or not, I mean, that's our hope. I don't know with the way that things are politically in our country right now, but I think it would mean a lot to people to see that happen on a legislative level, to know that, you know, we care about your health, that, you know, addiction and mental health is considered actual health. You know what I mean? And I think that's the message that needs to be brought across, because I think it'll be really fundamental in breaking down the stigma of mental health when on a, you know, insurance level, when we go to get treatment, it's not like, oh, well, you could pay out of that pocket if you want it. Like, if it's an extra expense, you know what I mean? That's the problem. It's like, you treat it like an extra expense, I'm going to think it's not necessary or not, you know, important to my recovery. And so I think those things are just unique, because I haven't heard anyone really talk about that either.
Well, it's not something that people want to talk about. In fact, like, I've been in this position for 17 years, and I say that, like, treatment has changed so much. And the fact of the matter is that we take a hard line on, you have to be sober to be here and try sobriety. If you want to leave and go use after you're out of here, great. But I want to give you the best chance that we know of while you're here. And the things have changed rapidly. And I think we forget sometimes that when you're treating addiction is different than just treating a medical condition, in that the whole premise of addiction is that you can't stop using. So if you're putting in other substances that can be addicting, what's generally going to happen is it's either going to be a lot of use of that, or you're going to switch to whatever else is there. So it is a very difficult thing, you know, and have to really be part of a collaborative team. So.
Well, thank you so much for showing us your collaborative team. I think Recovery Revolution, you guys have a really nice, well-rounded, wholesome treatment. Jana, anything you want to say before?
Just like we chose just like we chose every piece in this building to provide a homely feel and things like that. We chose our name to really speak what we do. And we always say with recovery, there's hope, and revolution, there's transformation. And that's what we're looking for.
All right. So we're here with Dee Parker. She is the Recovery Center Coordinator for Clean Slate Recovery Center. Dee, thank you for being with us. Can you explain to people what a recovery center is, and more specifically, how Clean Slate Recovery Center functions?
Yes. So a Clean Slate is a recovery center that is funded by Northampton County, and it's available for the community. They can come in and they can use the computers. They can get help with resumes. Even we help them fill out information to get on IHEAP and different other things that are available. And there's information on recovery. We have meetings every night almost, and that's available. And we have a lot of paper information. They can read about different, meetings and get the information on where to go. So we try to help them out in many areas of their life. We can help with, food resources and clothing resources, and mental health issues and, substance use disorder situations. So there's a lot that we have to offer.
And so all these services, coming to the recovery center, is this a free service?
Yes, there's no charge for anything that we do. Everything is free. They can use even the printer, and we can fax information for them. There's no charge for anything.
That's awesome. And so you guys do, I know, activities like yoga. You guys have that rock painting, pumpkin thing going on. So I know, there'll be pictures up, as we're talking now, and people are seeing, it's a very homey environment. With all the activities, you as a coordinator, what is it that you'd like to communicate to people coming to the recovery center? You know what I mean? What is it that you want them to know when they come here?
Well, I want, the community to know that there's a safe place for them to come. There's coffee usually always on. I try to have some snacks there, so I like to feed people.
Yeah.
And just to be able to know that if they're struggling, there's someone there to talk to. If they need help with something, if I can't help them, I have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
So I want people to know that, they don't have to struggle through life, and that there's way out.
So what kind of supports do you have for family members of people, experiencing addiction?
Well, the family is affected in such a deep way, and it's a family disease. So we have Al-Anon, and we also have an ACA meeting there. So that is to support the family, and that's very, very important. Because even though a person might get, sober, the disease is still very active in the family because it's been there for so long. So we try to support that and have them know that they're not alone, and help them to recognize their own part in the disease. Yeah. And then we help them to get better themselves.
I think that's awesome. And then, it's like a very holistic approach, not just for the family, but for the person too, because, they can get better support when the family understands what they're going through. So I love that. I love all of that. Is there anything else about the recovery center? Any kind of programs or activities you guys do with the community?
Yeah, we do. We have a ukulele coming up the end of the week. We try to do fun things. We try to make, put the fun into sobriety, so that there's a lot of things that we can do for the family, and then, also for the addict themselves. So we try every week to have something going on.
That sounds really great. So Clean Slate Recovery, this is together with the Recovery Revolution. As was explained to us here, all the information is going to be below in the links, websites, numbers, how to get in contact with them. If you need help, if you're shy and you don't want to reach out, please, come to us. We'll help you. We'll connect you with Jana. We'll connect you with Dee. And we'll make sure that you get the help that you need and the community that you need.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
You're not alone. So come on.